Yes, the Bengals are 0-2, and yes, that is a very bad place to be. But perhaps worse is that we're back on calf watch with Joe Burrow.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. I'm your host, Jake Liscow. He's your host, James Rapien. We're coming to you after another Bengals 0-2 start. Unfortunately, this one compounded by an injury to Joe Burrow. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, bringing you coverage of your Cincinnati Bengals every day. You can find this podcast for free on YouTube or anywhere you get your podcasts, and hit that subscribe button if you're new. We'll have you covered throughout the year. It's not going to hopefully be a terrible year. We've seen them bounce back from these spots before, and when they do, we will have you covered this year. This episode brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs, who helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. James, we can start with many topics in this football game. Lamar Jackson played great. The Bengals defense left something to be desired. The Bengals got off to a slow start. The Joe Burrow interception was game-changing and perhaps game-breaking for the Bengals. But more important than any of those things, as we just saw this team recover from an 0-2 start in 2022 to make the AFC Championship game, is Joe Burrow. Because if he's not right, and Zach Taylor and Burrow both said that he would have gone back out there for the final drive if the Bengals had gotten the ball back and had a chance to go try to tie or win the game. He injured that calf again on his last play of the game, a touchdown pass to Tee Higgins, a really nice play for Joe Burrow, by the way, scrambling to buy time, a free runner. He saw the free runner coming, threw a perfect ball to Tee Higgins near the front pylon, but immediately hobbled to the sideline, got that massage gun to the calf on the sideline to try to loosen it back up. Said it was quite sore after the game, didn't feel good, said they'd have to take a day-to-day. And as a result, I think a couple of things are true. One, I'll at least say I was wrong about the calf injury. I thought by this point we would have put it in the rearview mirror. It's still lingering, and now more than lingering appears to have been tweaked, and is something that will require close monitoring and management from the Cincinnati Bengals.
The good news, let's start with some good news. They don't play till Monday night. So you get a little more R&R if you're Joe Burrow, and you can get more treatment and go that route. That said, the parallels between last year and this year are eerily similar. I mean, this offense really felt like it was getting going in that second half and showed signs of being the offense that you hoped. And when you go back to that second half of the Dallas game last year in week 2, that's when it kind of looked like it and looked like it was going to come out of and snap back into reality on what should be a really talented offense. That said, yeah, the calf injury lingers, and I think is going to continue to linger, and it stinks. And I tried to ask if it had ever felt the way it was currently feeling as he was at the podium when he had his bad days, because when he came back, he talked about in return to practice how he would have good days and bad days. And so is this something he's experienced? Is this something he feels like he can play through? You want to try to get to it. And I think the Burrow that I saw up there was someone that truly didn't know, was unsure. And in that aspect of it, not knowing, I know there was a question or two about confidence, and of course, he's always confident, but you can't be confident in something that you don't know. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he knows about this. And it's kind of the scary part is when it just happened. So who knows? You know, he may wake up tomorrow and feel pretty decent, but it really stinks that this does feel like it's going to linger. And by the way, I don't think it necessarily had a big impact on him today, good and bad. I don't think that was necessarily it. And maybe you disagree, that's fine. But to me, we started to see this offense become what we expected it to be. And now we have this cloud that's hanging over everything. This would be the biggest concern if they were 2-0 it's an even bigger concern now that they're 0-2 because there's no margin for error.
Yeah, and it was already going to be a tight margin for error this year in general, with the general strength of the AFC North improving. And I think, now the Ravens 2-0 have a 2-game lead in the division over the Cincinnati Bengals. At least the rest of the AFC North at worst will be 1-1. There could be another 2-0 team in the AFC North pending a primetime football game. It's absolutely the biggest concern because while they were showing signs of coming out of it in the second half, now you don't know if you're going to have your quarterback playing at a high level. Did it impact him a ton today? I don't know that I think it impacted him a ton, but it was clear to me that he was still reluctant to run. He was still reluctant to break the pocket. He did. Justin Madubuike got immediate pressure beating Alex Kappa at some point in the game. He high steps over a potential sack and scrambles for 5 yards, but he did not look like he was running at full speed. I think that his top end speed was still hampered in this game. And clearly, he was willing to push it to try to win the game on that throw to Tee Higgins where he has to sprint out to buy time to make that throw. But he pays a price immediately. But you're right that there were signs of life. And that's kind of the secondary point on the offensive side of the ball. It wasn't as good as it needed to be. Obviously, they set 2 drives on fire, one of which it sounds like both Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow don't necessarily agree with the holding call on 2nd and 4 that was called on Alex Kappa on a first down run for Joe Mixon that ended up being a 2nd and 14 and then a punt. But after the start of the game, when they were 2 of 5 on 3rd downs, I believe in the first half, they were 8 of 10 on 3rd downs with a 4th down conversion on one of those plays in the second half, just one punt in the second half. They did have the interception, and that interception was game-changing. Instead of potentially either tying the game at 13 or going up 17-13 at the time, it immediately becomes 20-10, and then you need a perfect game from there to try to win. They don't have a perfect game from there. They end up punting, perhaps in an ill-advised fashion in the 4th quarter, thinking we might be able to get 2 more possessions here. They don't get the 2 more possessions, but there are a lot of signs of life there for this team. Tee Higgins getting involved in the middle of the field, a little bit more for Jamar Chase going, although still not at the level you'd want to see, but a lot of really close, but not quite there moments too. An Irv Smith play, a Tyler Boyd play in the corner of the end zone, a Tee Higgins play near the front pylon. They didn't necessarily all come back to bite. That Irv Smith play where he couldn't get the second foot in early in the game on what could have been an explosive play on that first 3rd down of the game where they end up punting right away. That's a big play in this football game. That's a play you need Irv Smith to make. You need Irv Smith to break that tackle on a 3rd down against a 0 look later in the game and then have a ton of space to run after the catch. They didn't get those plays. And perhaps some of those make a difference in this game as well. But to your point, you're right that there are reasons for optimism on the offensive side of the ball, that Joe Burrow is starting to see things better. He's starting to make better decisions, that interception aside. In the second half, I mean, their drives were 58 yards, 75 yards, the 1 3 and out. That was not a very good drive. And then 80 yards. You take that in the second half for the most part. They started to look good.
Sure, except you can't have the 3 and out when your defense can't get a stop.
And then the defense gets 1 stop, but it's like 1 of 2 in the game.
Sure, which is unbelievably bad. And of the 2, which one I'd be more frustrated with? It's the defense, to be very, very clear.
I don't think I agree with you there either.
From today. That's fine. Here's the problem is you want to make Lamar Jackson look like an MVP. Joe Burrow wasn't going to look like an MVP today. I don't think anyone expected him to do that. And so concerns, the Bengals offensive line, I think, played pretty well. Lamar Jackson did his thing. And so, I mean, how don't you agree? Actually, I don't even think it's really debatable.
Oh, we can talk about it.
How don't you?
We'll talk about it.
3:28 left, two straight first downs. I mean, I think
let's talk about
that's
it.
all it is. But
Let's get into it.
All right.
Coming up next.
All right. Yeah.
We'll talk defense, offense. Defense struggled with Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson played great. And which is more concerning? We'll get into that next. This episode of Locked On Bengals brought to you by LinkedIn, who knows that every new hire these days can feel like a high-stakes wager. for your business, and you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs, who helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. I love to talk about these screening questions that make it easy for you to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to get in for an interview in a very competitive landscape and get into your organization. So why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality candidates versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Today's show is also brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy the way it should be. What do I mean by that? Well, you pick 2 to 6 players, and whether they're going to go for more or less than their stat projections, and you can watch the winnings roll in, because you can win up to 25 times your money this football season with PrizePicks. It's really simple to play. You can make all your picks and submit them in less than 60 seconds. And whether it's Saquon Barkley and you want to take the more on his rushing yards or the less on the number of Lamar Jackson rushing yards, since we'll talk about Lamar Jackson coming up, those are 2 examples of the many that you can do with PrizePicks. And PrizePicks now offers Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. So go to PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNFL, code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100.
The question we left off with is, are you more concerned about the defense or the offense going forward? And I think Joe Burrow's calf is a big part of why I'm concerned about the offense. The slow starts are a big part of why I'm concerned about the offense. There are signs of life there. On the defensive side of the ball, they weren't good. I don't say that I'm not concerned about the Bengals defense, because I think they were good, to be clear. They did hold the Ravens to 5.9 yards per play, which isn't great. The Ravens had to slowly, methodically work their way down the field, but they had 26 first downs. They were 9 of 14 on third down. It wasn't good. But the reason, I guess, that my concerns are not super high on the defensive side of the ball is that they don't play Lamar Jackson every week. And I think Lamar was very, very good in this game. He didn't hit every single pass, but he had some perfect passes at opportune times. The Zay Flowers bomb, the touchdown to Nelson Aguilar on the slot fade against Chidobe Awuzie. He had some perfect passes in this game. And on top of that, with his legs, he just creates such a problem. If the Bengals played Lamar Jackson every week, yeah, I'd be very concerned. They don't have answers for Lamar. When they tried to spy him, they lost contain on third in the game. Sam Hubbard couldn't quite keep the edge where Logan Wilson's responsible for any rush up the middle. Lamar Jackson draws him in and then is able to get around the edge and get out there. But I think it's mostly a Lamar issue. I think that his legs neutered the Bengals pass rush, which needs to be better, by the way, but was largely ineffective because of Lamar Jackson and his ability to nullify your pass rush. And I thought he played on time. I thought the Ravens offense clicked. I don't know that it necessarily means I'm long-term concerned about the Bengals defense, but they don't seem to have answers for Lamar Jackson. And that is a concern for at least one more game this year.
All right, 2 things. One, moving forward, that's a totally different conversation. Today, which one cost them more? One team actually figured it out, at least a bit. And Burrow threw the pick, but the defense is the one that turned that into a scoring drive. It didn't have to be. It didn't have to be a scoring drive.
It was a perfect throw for what it's worth. But yeah, you're right.
And fine. And it's a perfect throw to Aguilar too, right? Where he's just in the end zone. I get it. But at some point, it can't say 0 sacks for 0 yards, regardless of who the quarterback is.
They did have 2 sacks. They just didn't count. They had a strip sack that was nullified by hands of the face penalty that was absolutely brutal. They had a sack that was nullified by one of the worst calls I've seen made in an NFL game, where Odell Beckham Jr. pulls Cam Taylor-Britt down with both arms, and Cam Taylor-Britt is called for illegal contact, saving the Ravens a penalty or a timeout in a crucial situation in the 2-minute drill. But yeah, I mean, throughout the game, the pressure wasn't good enough.
That's fine. We can do that. It also doesn't matter. Like, this isn't – we can do the ref thing, and I agree with you. But 0-2 is 0-2. And the defense the point is the game is on the line. Joe Burrow's massaging his calf. The defense needs to get off the field. That's what it comes down to, really. That's really what it comes down to. In third down, they did everything but what? Keep track of Lamar Jackson. He gets the first down. It's game over, and they let him pick up another first down, but it's pretty much game over at that point. Like, after everything that they had been through all game long, if you get a stop there, it changes it. And usually over the past couple of years, they have gotten that stop. And so that's the part of it defensively. I get it. Lamar's a freak. I think this offense for the Ravens is pretty good. I do. I mean, they're missing a couple guys on the line, and you couldn't really tell. I think Lamar's really looks good, like MVP style Lamar. So I get all that. And then you flip it offensively. I think, the big concern is injury. Other than that, like if Burrow wasn't dealing with this calf, it would be like, oh, well, they might have found some things. And they got to get Jamar Chase more involved. These 30-yard games are insane. And I expect that to change starting Monday night. But now that Burrow's calf is up in the air, it changes everything. It changes the way you view it. It's not just 0-2, they've been there before. It's 0-2, they've been there before, but they have this cloud lingering. So that's the other part of this. I do want to shout out Charlie Jones, Chuck Sizzle, with a really, really nice return. Best return I've seen from him. And what I think that means is he's getting confidence, certainly being more decisive, which is something he had talked about wanting to be. And it shows the potential that the Bengals obviously saw when they drafted him in the 4th round, because I think his transition to the league in general has been a little, I don't even want to say challenging, but taken a little more time than that some people at least expected. And so for him to have that today, I do think that's huge for him. Yeah.
I think that you mentioned decisive play. That's what made the touchdown happen. There was some really good blocking on that play, by the way, as well, from some other Bengals rookies. Andre Yosevach, one of them, Chase Brown, one of them, a couple of other young guys out there making some key blocks. He took what was blocked and it was blocked up really well. And he hit it the way he needed to hit it. He hasn't been, the shiftiest of punt returners in terms of making guys miss, but in terms of getting to the running lane and running to daylight, he did a very good job on that punt return. And he gets a lot of credit for that. Just going back to our conversation on the topic of, where this game let them down, the way it ended, I think eyes on the defense for sure. Right. And the Ravens didn't go 3 and out until the 4th quarter. The defense needed to be better for sure. The Bengals can't set their first 2 drives of the game on fire against this Ravens team.
No doubt.
You just can't.
No doubt.
And maybe that 3rd drive where Charlie Jones returns it for a touchdown, maybe that's where we start to see the offense click, because the next drive we did see the Bengals go down and kick a field goal after failing to convert a 3rd and 5. That was the Rock Ya-Sin pass breakup against Jamar Chase. And man, that's a matchup you take every time if you're the Bengals. And you got Jamar Chase on Rock Ya-Sin, but they don't get the completion there. So maybe the offense starts showing signs earlier if they get that drive instead of the Chuck Sizzle touchdown. You never complain about a touchdown, obviously.
No.
It's just like the trend of the game, right?
Sure.
The way things finished was pro offense, not so good on the defense, but taking the whole, that they cannot do this at the start of games against the Ravens either.
No doubt. I mean, the Ravens go 8 minutes. And one of the major keys was getting off the field. And so they go 8 minutes to start, and then you go 3 and out. And I get it. They did get the first down, and you have the holding call, all of those things. I get the circumstances. By the way, Charlie Jones's touchdown happened right after the strip sack was nullified.
Yep.
So it kind of made up for it in a way, even though it would have been really cool to have the strip sack and get the offense short yardage. Who knows if they actually scored a touchdown or not. So you did get 7. So, but you're right. The first 2 drives, fast start. Like, there's so many parallels to last year. You know how often it was fast start, fast start, fast start. They have to start fast, how important it was. And then you remember that first drive against the Jets where they're 0-2. They talk about how they're going to start fast. They take the ball. This becomes a whole thing. They're on the road and they go down. Like, I think we're going to get some of the same themes here of wanting to start fast and the need for it. Now, it's all dependent on one guy's injury. And so we will discuss more other takeaways from today's game as well coming up next.
Today's episode of Locked On Bengals is brought to you by FanDuel, and you can snap right into the action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers will get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. $200 in bonus bets, win or lose on your first $5 bet. And if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, that means there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use as well. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and kick off the NFL season with FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Today's show is also brought to you by Pierce Dental Group. And Pierce Dental Group is the place you need to go. If you're a Bengals fan and in Cincinnati or in Northern Kentucky, you got to go there because they are the premier dental group in the area, providing world-class experience and creating confident smiles. Their downtown location has been in downtown Cincinnati, where I'm at right now, since 1942. They have over 1,300 five-star Google reviews. And whether it's cosmetics, dental implants, Invisalign, routine care, Pierce Dental Group is the place to go. They are the official member of the Professional Football Dental Association. Go where the pros go. That is Pierce Dental. They also have flexible payment options and pride themselves on maximizing your dental insurance. So make sure you check them out. PierceDentalGroup.com, PEARCE dentalgroup.com. Search Pierce Dental Group on Instagram or Facebook.
Tough start to the season, being 0-2. Not like last year in some ways, as much as you would like to think that last year's context and comeback from that spot would give you confidence in the team this year. That Joe Burrow calf injury hanging over things. Other takeaways in this game to hit on? I thought that this is a very small note, James, but I'm just going to get it out of the way. Brad Robbins again, leaving a little bit of something to be desired.
Yes.
Notably was observed getting chewed out on the sideline by Darren Simmons after the punt from the 49-yard line that was fair caught at the 10. Interestingly, not sure what that was about. There are worse results than that, but not great early returns for Brad Robbins. Long punt today, I think 41 yards.
Yep.
Need that to be a little better.
3 total, 40-yard average. And you're right, depending on where you're at on the field, it's going to be that way. Stout, by the way, for the Ravens, 2 punts, including a 63-yarder.
Which was a touchback. But
yeah,
yes.
which was too far. Right.
Yes.
So you're seeing the reason I mentioned that is he had a rough day, really. I mean, his 2 punts, one's a touchdown and one's a touchback. Meanwhile, Brad Robbins, you'd like to see like 5 more yards on that average, because we get it. You don't need him to be 58.5 like Stout, because usually that'll be a touchback unless you're backed up. At the same time, it was a nice day out there. There's no weather. You can see on YouTube right now, it's still really nice here in Cincinnati. So there was no weather to worry about.
How about offensive scheme, James? A common point of criticism after week 1 on social media. Another common point of criticism this week that I've seen people asking once again, why are the Bengals receivers in such tight coverage all the time? Why can't they scheme guys open? I didn't really have that feeling today. I felt like Burrow was maybe a little quick on the trigger in the first half. One big upside this week that you briefly mentioned earlier that I want to call attention to again is I thought the offensive line and pass pro played really well in this game. Joe Mixon again played really well in the run game. So there's a couple of positives there, but people still come back to this coaching staff. What are your thoughts?
I think it's easy to always to go that route, especially when you start slow and you start games slow. And they do need to figure it out and start much better, because I think that's part of it. Like 24 points probably should get it done against the Ravens. Like it's hard to ask, at least against a full strength Ravens team. It's hard to ask against any AFC North team. And I had it 27-20 in my prediction. But are you going to go score 30 on every AFC North team? Like you give up 27, like that's tough. And Justin Tucker missed a field goal, so you almost gave up 30. So I don't know. I mean, scheme wise, I will say this. You need to figure out a way to get Jamar Chase more than 30 yards. Like whatever that is. And I'm not saying they didn't try or he wasn't targeted. He had 8 targets. It's not like he had 3 targets. But this offense, it goes is – I mean, his 2 biggest plays, Jamar Chase's 2 biggest plays in week 1 and week 2 through 2 weeks now, the 2 biggest plays have been pass interference calls.
Mm-hmm.
Can happen. So they have to figure that out. And I don't necessarily know if that's a scheme thing, by the way, but it is something that needs to change. Overall, though, I don't know. I think it's tough. This is still a matchup that clearly makes it tough on this Bengals offense. And if anything, I am wondering, passing wise, it's like, all right, it feels like you're missing a piece, like one piece. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just rhythm. I don't know. Because I don't want to necessarily point to tight end because I don't know if it's that. If Irv Smith Jr. gets 2 feet down, I probably wouldn't even be thinking of it that way. So I don't know if it's that. I don't know if it's, the dynamic running back out of the backfield, because people are going to mention Joe Mixon 9 yards per catch. I get that 32 of them came on the one and everything else was, just quick dump offs, check down type throws that didn't get much. And by the way, that was a good play, good scheme, where you fake the reverse to Jamar, you throw it back to Joe Mixon, and you get him moving. So I think that set up the interception, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm not here questioning scheme today. I do think that they need to figure it out where they get their best player involved, and that's what Jamar Chase is. He's their best player, as far as skill player, not named Joe Burrow. And
all of his touches, not all, many of his touches, he had the 14, 15-yard out. He had, I think, a comeback as well. Most of his touches, many of his touches were right at the line of scrimmage.
Which we never used to see.
You'd see
his long was 13. His long was 13.
So that must have been the 13-yard out, I think. Yeah, I mean, he's still a very dynamic player. And the biggest disappointment to me about this offense in this game is the backup safety is a player who made the interception. Kudos to Geno Stone, to Mike McDonald for holding their disguise so late into a snap, something that Zach Taylor credited them for after the game. Joe Burrow never saw Geno Stone cheating on that Tee Higgins route. Tee Higgins at his locker said it was a look they wanted, something they've been repping this week. Thought that was going to be a good play for them. And it's just one of those, Mike McDonald's playing this team the same way in a lot of ways. Selective with pressure, showing too high, rotating off of too high consistently. I think, again, we saw the Ravens, just like the Browns last week, give a pre-snap man tell, following a receiver in motion across the formation, then dropping into zone. That leads to a Burrow sack. Jonah Williams ends up being the guy who's Jadeveon Clowney's rushing against him, gets the sack. But that's, Joe Burrow thinks he's getting one thing, tries to step up in the pocket when he doesn't get what he wants on his first read. Then there's a cleanup sack. And Jonah wasn't great, wasn't perfect in this game, but he was fine. I did think Orlando Brown might have been perfect in pass pro. Yeah, by the way,
he was good.
I don't recall him giving up a single pressure. We'll see on tape. That the things that I want to see on tape this week are offensive line stuff. I think they were much better this week. I think both guards gave up a quick pressure. Jonah gave up a quick pressure. But if that's it, you can live with that for sure. I want to watch Jamar's routes. I want to see if Joe was processing the game right, because there were a lot of checkdowns when it felt like he had good protection and could have held onto the ball and let plays develop. Those are some things on the offensive side I'm interested in. Then on defense, a lot of people think that the Bengals just weren't prepared for Lamar. And I don't know if I am there from a game planning perspective. I just don't think they executed. I think, they had a spy on 3rd and game, and then they just didn't execute with the spy.
That's like saying we're not prepared for a crossover. Like we've done them. Like they've faced Lamar. Like this coaching staff has faced Lamar. A lot of these guys have. So I think they were prepared. You're right. It's an execution thing. And when you don't execute, you look unprepared. Yeah. Like it goes hand in hand. And so, yeah, I mean, I certainly don't think they execute. I agree with you though. I want to see the downfield stuff. Mm-hmm. What was there? What wasn't there? The quick dump offs to Mixon in the flat. Did you need to go that route or did you not? Is there anything open over the middle? Did you have Jamar deep on any of the plays? Like those are the things, because until you see that, you really can't say scheme.
That's always my thing with scheme. Like how are we saying it's a play calling before we've seen tape? Like I can't see anything that's happening down the field except where the ball goes. And I know some people at the game said that it looked hard for receivers to get open too. I would just point to the second half. Tee Higgins over the middle of the field was taking candy from a baby in that second half. And they were hitting it consistently and moving the chains consistently in that second half. But not the explosives are missing, right? That's what you point to every time. Last year, this year, so far seems to be the case. Need to find those explosives. Big point of emphasis this offseason. Something that we will continue to monitor for this team. That's going to do it for this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. We'll have some film takeaways coming your way in the near future on this show as well, once we've had a chance to dive into the tape. So until next time, thanks for listening. Hoo day, and have a good one.